Today on the PitchBook podcast, relief pitcher Lily Carroll is pitching A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell. Batter up! All right, Lily, we're excited to have you on here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. A Woman of No Importance. I sense some irony in the title. How did you find this book? Tell us how you found it, and then tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah, so my husband and I were on an anniversary trip in Cedar City this past June, and we were walking around. I found this cute little bookstore, and I walked right in, browsed for a little bit because, being in a bookstore is just heaven to me. So I love spending as much time there as possible. So I was walking around and I saw this book, A Woman of No Importance, sitting on just a little shelf, a little stand. And I went over there, picked it up, and I sat down and started reading. And, 45 minutes later, my husband comes around the corner like, "Where were you? Where have you been? I've been looking for you. I've been talking to the cashier lady for an hour now." I was like, "Sorry, the book was really good."
So what is this book? What is it about? Obviously, again, there can't be a book about somebody who's not important, I guess. But tell us about it.
Right. So it's about this girl named Virginia Hall who was born in Baltimore. And she always, back in the 1920s, like this was right before World War II, and she had a really big kind of vision for her life. She was a tomboy, really big into hunting with her dad, all these things that were not proper for a woman at that time of her family station and stuff. And what she really wanted to do, she was obsessed with traveling in the world and languages and politics and all these things. And so it's kind of her journey from living in Baltimore to working for the Winston Churchill's super secret agency, the SEO, and becoming one of the main spies in France during World War II. And if it wasn't for Virginia Hall, most of the intel that was brought in about the Axis powers about Germany would not have even existed. It wouldn't have gotten there. And so they say that the war was won in a good part, or at least France was taken back from the Axis powers because of Virginia Hall. D-Day could happen because of a lot of the things that she did. So it's kind of her story.
I've never heard of her. Why?
Right?
Am I just hearing of her? Yeah,
I don't even know, which is kind of funny because if you go to DC, they have the Spy Museum there in Washington DC, and there's a whole section just dedicated to her. But yeah, we don't talk about her. Nobody knows about her, which honestly is kind of how Virginia would want it. She was very much a natural spy, I guess. She kept a lot to herself. She got a bunch of awards at the end of the war, and she was just like, you know what, I'd rather just stay undercover. I don't want to do much, just let me do this. So it kind of doesn't surprise me that we don't know too much about her.
I actually went to the Spy Museum and don't remember her at all. So that's how
really
ridiculous this is. Because I swear I read almost every single thing there, but I just forgot it all, I guess. Here's what here's what I'm imagining. An American in France spying, howdy y'all. Where's the Axis powers coming from this time of year? How does she do this?
She was Baltimore.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know how to.
Yeah, I got to do a Baltimore accent.
I just did an American as much as I could have. There we go.
This is what they did.
Yeah. What
you want to hear kind of the crazy story?
Yeah.
So what happens is she first. I just kind of got to go back to the beginning because literally everything that happened to her was completely. You're like, this is a 1 in a million chance. How she was found, how she got here, and the kicker, she was an amputee. She had a wooden leg and did all of this.
What?
And completely left that part out. Yeah. So let me just give you the little kind of short synopsis here, just how she got to France and everything. So first she was, her mom tried to marry her off. She said, no, I don't want to do this. Her dad let her go travel abroad and study abroad, and she absolutely fell in love with Europe. She learned 5 to 6 languages. She loved, especially Paris. She loved how going there, the women they seemed so free. They were able to do all these things that she wanted to do, She wanted to be an ambassador. She was so interested in what was happening in the world. And so she took, because she wanted to be an ambassador, she took the test that you have to do to get that, and she was rejected every single time. She got 100% on her oral exam. She was probably the best candidate they had, and she was still rejected. And so she was able to just be a secretary. That was all she was able, that's all they qualified her for, I guess. So her first station was in Turkey, I believe. And while she was in Turkey, she went hunting with some of her friends because she loves hunting. They were going to hunt some snipes. She had a rifle that her dad had given to her when he had passed away. And she was trying to climb over a fence to get to a snipe and fell and forgot to put the safety on and ended up shooting herself in the foot, point blank, with her rifle.
Wow.
Is that how she lost her leg, or
that's how she lost her leg? Okay. So they took her to the hospital. They thought everything was going to be fine, but then gangrene set in. The infection got really, really bad. It was totally going to kill her. And they said, sorry, we got to remove your leg below the knee. So they removed that, and she was given a wooden prosthetic, whom she named Cuthbert, which is kind of funny. And so because of that, she still said, I'm not going to let this stop me. She kept working there. She kept working in Turkey for a little bit after she kind of, recovered. Then they sent her to Venice, which I didn't know this, but, it's the worst place you could ever send someone with an amputee because it's just a bunch of walking, right? So they sent her to Venice, and while she was there, she really was just so unsatisfied with everything that was happening. She tried taking the tests again to become an ambassador, and it just still wasn't working out. So what she decided to do then was go, and at this time, World War II had kind of started, so you couldn't take direct routes over the channel to get to Britain. So you kind of had to go the long way. So as she was going the long way to get to Britain, she ended up meeting this man. Oh, what's his name? His name was George Bellows. And this is the only time you hear his name mentioned in World War II history, according to the historian who wrote this book. George Bellows found her and was just so impressed with her moxie and her character and just kind of the vibe that she gave off that he gave her this card and said, hey, I have a friend. When you get to London, give him a call. And so she did. Little did she know that George Bellows was actually part of Winston Churchill's Special Operations Executive, also known as SOE. And so when she called, they were like, oh, yeah, come in. Let's talk to you. So they went in and talked, gave her an interview, kind of figured out, I don't know how spy interviews go, but she passed. They were like, hey, we're having a really hard time getting into France right now. We can't get any spies into there. And she's like, I'll do it. And they said, really? Because you're probably going to die. Like, we only give about 30 days to anybody we drop into France right now.
Wow.
And she said, no, I'll totally do it. So she did. They put her undercover as an American journalist because, she had the accent.
Yeah,
she couldn't be a native. She couldn't pretend.
Yeah.
But they had her go to France as an American journalist. And that's how she started her network. I can't remember all the cities and stuff that she was in where she was initially stationed. But basically, once she got to France, there was nothing there. No network, no anything. And she built it from the ground up, all by herself at about 20 years old.
That's
and this is just over the course of just World War II. And there's a lot of other really cool things that she's done that I would love to tell you if we have time for it, or if that's something you want
to. We do, but there's one thing that's killing me. Please tell me that she took some secret messages and put them in her leg, her fake leg, and
she did
somewhere. Okay, yes,
yes. What she do? There was a little hole. Yes, there was a little hole in her leg, and she would put stuff up there that she needed. It was so cool, and that was the thing was so she was starting to do all these amazing things, right? And her code name in the field was either Marie or Diane, right? So she was starting to do all of these amazing things, and the Germans found out. And they were like, okay, who's this man that's doing this? It's got to be a man.
Of course.
Right?
That's why she was so good.
Well, but then they found out, they're like, no, it's actually a woman, and it's a woman with a false leg. They found that out, and they couldn't find her because she was so good at disguising her gait and disguising kind of how she, operated, that they were unable to find her. She was so good at just moving around that it wasn't an issue. And she also just this is one theme that I think is so cool about the whole book in general that I really wish people would. I don't know. It kind of gave me hope and was like, oh, maybe I can be cool one day too. But just her sheer personality, she was able to win over all kinds of people. Didn't matter who you were. She was able to win over French police that were supposed to be working with the Germans. She was able to win over Germans. She was able to win over all these people. She was able, people who you wouldn't think would become French and American sympathizers. Well, I guess America wasn't in the war when she first started,
right?
But sympathizers to their cause, to the French, revolution almost. She was able to recruit them. And that was kind of one theme that you see throughout the whole book is just her ability to read people and find connections with people and unify in just a way that no quote man ever could.
Yeah.
Right.
It's such an interesting story because she had a will to be an ambassador. That path didn't work, but it didn't dissuade her from getting involved and being engaged. She just found another path. I love that.
Right.
And Cuthbert
the leg, the secret message leg.
Well, and I have a funny story about Cuthbert. So there was one time she was trying to get somewhere. I can't remember where she was trying to get, but she sent a message back to London. And she's like, hey, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. And Cuthbert is being really difficult. And they send back to her, well, why don't you just have him eliminated? Like they didn't comprehend that Cuthbert was her
It's like her secret spy boyfriend that they're trying to find. It's Cuthbert. Where is he?
Yep.
I don't know. That's so good.
Yep.
That's cool.
She ends up gathering intel that's helping the United States and Britain to win the war. Does she ends up getting discovered or no? Like she's undercover the whole time?
Well, so she ends up kind of getting discovered twice. So the first time she ended up becoming one of the most infamous jailbreakers.
Really?
Yeah. Her most famous one was called Mozak, I think. And it's where she broke out 12 SEO agents from a Nazi camp. And Hitler himself was so pissed off that he said, this is it. We have her picture. We have everything. You will completely turn France upside down and find Marie. And so she had to leave. She had to flee. Okay. So she did. She left over. She had to go the long way. She climbed in the middle of winter up the Pyrenees Mountains.
Wow.
To get to safety. And she made it.
What a cool story.
Right. And then the second time, so this is actually really cool too. So the second time that she was finally outed there was a man, a German spy, and his name was, I think, Robert Alesh. Hold on, I'm going to look at my notes. Robert Alesh. And he was pretending to be a priest, right? And he was the guy specifically that they said, you go get Virginia, go get Marie. And he was the one person that she didn't vet enough. And she let him in, and her operation was toast, and they had to pull her out again.
Oh, no.
And that was at the very end of World War II. Like, she survived the entire time, and there were times where she was about to be caught, but her network was just so good, and everybody was just so like pro Marie, pro Virginia, that they let her know ahead of time so that they could save her, and she'd get out. But this was the one time at the very end where, for some reason, we don't even really know. I think in the book, there might have been journal entries or something. I can't remember, but Sonia Purnell, the author, gives kind of a reasoning that why she might have trusted Robert more. But he was, at the end of the day, the one person she didn't vet enough, and he was the one that found her and officially turned her in at the end. But she was narrowly able to get away again.
When you think of spies, you just think Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise, cool motorcycle, and you really have to have somebody that's totally unsuspected or
unremarkable. That's
unremarkable, kind of flies under the radar, not very quote unquote special. And it sounds like she's able to do all of those amazing things.
Right. And she was more than Mission Impossible. She was in charge of creating like sabotage cells and training them and conducting like we're telling them where the air raids were going and pick up and like she coordinated and trained and did absolutely everything. She was a saboteur. She was a master craftsman coder person. I don't know what I should really have looked up all the words before what all of those were called. But she literally did everything. She was the master at spycraft, which I thought was just insane. Because you kind of see James Bond and you're like, oh yeah, he's so cool. But he kind of has like the guy at the computer kind of is still telling him where to go, and James Bond or whoever just kind of shoots stuff. No, she shot people. She was the person behind the computer. She did it all. Wow. And it was, and she was only she's in her 20s. She's in her early 20s when she did this.
Did she have any training, or they just sent her out? So she figured this out.
Training. Yeah. They gave her minimal training and said, go for it. Because they didn't think she was going to live. They gave her 30 days. And even when she was being a radio operator, whose lifespan of radio operators at that point was only 3 weeks, she survived longer than 3 weeks. Like, just for some reason, the way that things worked out with her is she was literally protected. And some people might call it divine intervention. Some people might call it coincidence or good luck. But whatever she had the best juju out there, and the Nazis wanted it.
She was good at her job. Yeah.
She really was.
You teased that there's more that she did after this. Give us a quick test of that, and then we'll ask you what you rate the book. What else did she do after the war?
So it was actually kind of sad what happened to her after the war. So she came back to America. She was given all these medals and all these honors and all these things, and she was like, I kind of don't really want all that, but thank you. She finally got her job at the CIA, working in the Special Activities Division, just this desk job. And nobody knew who she was when they were there. Mm-hmm. And she was this one woman who was not quite a secretary. Like, she was higher than a secretary, but she still was very mistreated. She was promoted maybe once, but every single time she went in to try and get promoted, they would not let her. And specifically, her superiors would give her poor reviews and say all of these horrible things about her. Like, it really is kind of baffling. And she was the person that was humble enough to be like, do you know who I am? Like, she didn't say that, Mm-hmm. She just kind of kept going and just, kept trying to do it. And I don't think I can't remember if she quit the job at the CIA, but it is specifically mentioned about how she felt so like unfulfilled. Like, she wanted to be more involved. She preferred to be starving and under fire in the field than sitting at a desk job where nobody cared, right? Nobody cared to have relationships. Nobody cared to treat others with whatever, right? Like, it was just so different, and she did not like it. So yeah, that was kind of how she ended up, which is really sad. But I guess story. Though she was really instrumental, though, because on the Special Activities Division that she was on, she handled a lot of cases when communism started popping up, and so I guess a lot of her reports were influential in, dismantling or whatever of how the U.S. handled communism, I guess. But yeah, other than that, like, she was never, as far as we know, she was never in the field, or if she was, like, those haven't been declassed yet. Maybe I have no idea.
Wait for the sequel. So what do you rate the book? We go base hit, double, a triple, a home run, or a grand slam. What do you think?
So for sure, 1,000,000%, the story itself, grand slam. Mm-hmm. Like, as I was researching again, just kind of refreshing my brain today, I was kind of having a really kind of sad day, but after reading this story, it pumped me up. Like, it really kind of gave me life and energy, and just really helped me think that, I can do it. If she could walk a mountain with Cuthbert, I can sit here with my 3 screaming kids, right? Like, it gave me so much life, and I loved it. I will say, the book is also really well written. It's not textbooky at all. It's pretty engaging. But the only thing I would say that is not my favorite was the narrator.
Okay.
She was really good at doing all of the accents, But for me, who's not used to a lot of these accents and stuff, and just kind of listening to it as I was going about my day, it was kind of hard to focus.
Mhm.
So I would say if you're, I'm a more visual person, I probably would have preferred reading the book than listening to it with
Right.
that audio. But I would say if you have the chance to read it, you need to read this book because her story is truly inspiring.
And are
Also,
there
I mean,
are there any? Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say she literally shot herself in the foot and kept going. Literally.
Yeah.
So that's what were you going to say, Zach?
I was just going to ask if there were any quotes from the book, any messages that you wanted to share.
Yes. So kind of going back to about how Virginia was just this people person, people were drawn to her and gravitated towards her. And there was this one 17-year-old soldier that she trained. And he said that working with Virginia was worth being born.
Wow.
And that kind of struck me like he literally, and it kind of talked a little bit more about it, but he said he would do everything all over again to work with Virginia because that was the caliber of person that she was.
That's awesome. What a great story. I've got 4 daughters, so these kinds of stories are so good for young women.
Yeah, have them read it. They'll like it.
Yeah. You can do whatever you want. You could be a spy if you want to. That's awesome. Thanks, Lily.
Yeah. Thanks, Lily. We really appreciate having you on. And thanks again. We'll have to have you come back when you got another book that you love, or maybe one that you hate. Who knows? Thanks, Lily.
I have quite a few of those too. Thanks, guys.
All right. We'll see ya. Bye-bye.
We'll see ya. Bye.